Hi, welcome. My name is Andrea Russell, and I'm a program manager here at Google. Welcome to Cloud OnAir, live webinars from Google Cloud. We're here every Tuesday recording live, and today we're going to be talking about insight and how you can use your data to get more insights to drive better marketing decisions. Perfect. So I'm going to be kicking it off with just a great overview of Google Cloud, BigQuery, and how you can use our tools to get marketing insights. And then I'll pass it on to Jonathan Ramiro. He'll be talking about 7stars and their success story using Matillion and BigQuery. And then lastly, we'll have David Langton here to do a really cool demo of the Matillion ETL. He'll be showing you how easy to use the platform is and how quickly you can go from setup all the way to analysis in just like a few quick minutes. At the end, we'll also have time for questions. But if you've got some questions in the middle of the presentation, feel free to pop them into the form, and we'll be here answering questions live. So with that, I'll just dive right in. And so when I first joined the team here at Google Cloud, we went out and we spent a lot of time talking to customers. And what we kept hearing over and over is that advertisers know that they have a lot of data. They understand that the data is important, but it's really, really challenging to link these data sets together and get any sort of valuable insights. So here at Google, we decided that we need to do something. And we started thinking about how we could position ourselves to best help our clients get the most value from their data. And even personally, myself, I came from the advertising industry, online advertising. I worked at an agency trading desk, and I heard these same challenges echoed over and over. I would spend a lot of time in Excel sheets, doing VLOOKUPs, merging data sets, just so we could deliver those insights to our clients. So I think it's safe to say that most companies understand it's important to get smarter about data. And actually, the main goal is not just to be smarter with data, but to actually put the customer at the center of everything that you do. So with that in mind, I wanted to fast forward a bit and think about at the end of the presentation. So if there are three things that you leave this presentation with, there are three things that I want you to leave this presentation with, and maybe think about as you sort of hear from me and some of our other partners. The first is, what are the top 3 data silos that you could combine to create a better view of your customer? How can you understand your customer's journey better? The second is, what new customer insights can you unlock by combining your data together? And then the third is, how can you connect audience insights to drive better media activation and better performance? So we know it's easy to think about the problems, but it's much more difficult to get started. And so I hope we've inspired you to take the first step in your data journey. But even taking a step back, how can we get more valuable insights from your customers' data? We know that our clients are generating tons of data touch points. I've heard one statistic that there's over 900 customer touch points in the data journey. But how can you break this down? How can you start making sense from this huge volume of data? And so one way that we like to think about it is with this digital marketing insights formula. So if you think about connections or making connections across data, then you get insights. And to break this down even a little bit further, you can think of an X and Y axis. So if you have a blank grid and you draw one data point on there, that doesn't actually tell you much. So you don't actually know what's going on, you don't know what that means. And if you add 2 or 3 additional data points, that still doesn't tell you much. What's really valuable is the lines that you draw in between the data. And when you start to add those additional data sources, the connections are the really important part. It's the true source of power. And so in order to see the relationships between the data points, you have to create those connections. And when those connections increase, then you create a 3-dimensional picture of your data, and you can start to understand your customers more. You can start to create a richer and more robust view of your customer, which helps you to customize and personalize their journey and create a really unique customer experience. But here's the problem. Many of the tools that marketers use exist in isolation. There's some really great tools out there, but it's really challenging to make connections when you're using several different tools that don't talk to each other. It's as if all of these tools were living on a separate desert island with no boat, no bridge, just hanging out by themselves. The island itself might be great, but if you're all alone, it's not that fun. So we've heard from some of our customers that they use over 30 separate marketing tools to deliver marketing type activities, online, offline, anything that you would need to do with marketing. But in addition to marketing, there's also customer data. And that data can live in different silos, your CRM data, your ERP data, your billing data, and all of this could be enriching your marketing data to create that fuller three-dimensional view of your customer. So if you want to unlock the power of your data, you need more than just a new tool or one new thing. You need a whole customer data platform, a holistic vision that can help you to create the connections between your data points and pull out the nuggets of data to help you personalize the experience for your customers. And integrating your data doesn't just drive a technical advantage. Like, it's one thing to say you're using the newest tools and they're fast and they're awesome. These tools are actually critical to staying competitive. And the companies that are doing that tend to see huge benefits in sales, profits, and margins. So why Google? And I love it when companies come to this question because it's really simple. So Google was built as a data company. We've spent the past 18 years developing advertising tools. We have a huge advertising business. And we did that because we needed infrastructure that was robust, that was scalable, that could manage a lot of data. And there wasn't anything else out there. So we really built it ourselves. And we really aligned that with our mission of organizing the world's information and making it universally accessible and useful. We also have a really secure infrastructure. We take privacy and security seriously, and our customers put our trust in us. Our business depends on that. In fact, we've hired over 500 engineers just to focus on security alone. And at the end of the day, security and infrastructure is great, but for you, what really matters is getting the insights faster. So we have pre-built connectors that can bring your data directly into BigQuery, which reduces your overall time to set up. And BigQuery alone can run some of the queries that you would normally run in minutes or hours in seconds. Additionally, we want you to focus on the results, not just the technology. So we have a whole no-ops architecture, which is unique among cloud providers. This means that you can set up your data pipeline, you can bring your data in and immediately start to run a query without the IT overhead that you would need to use if you were using other providers. So how do you get started? I think the best way to think about this is to think about the data sets that you want to bring in, and then think about how you can get them into BigQuery. One great starting point is with the Google advertising data sources. So we have a service called the BigQuery Data Transfer Service, which automatically brings in data from YouTube, DoubleClick, AdWords, automatically into BigQuery in a scheduled manner multiple times a day. And aside from this transfer service, we have native connectors with GA360, so you can bring in that really rich site-side analytics data, and also Firebase, so you can bring in your mobile app data. Once your data is in BigQuery, then you can pretty much immediately start querying it with BigQuery and start to get insights. You can always also leverage our machine learning tools. So we have Cloud Data Lab, which makes it easy to get set up and start creating your own models. You could use TensorFlow or our machine learning engine or any of our other pre-built machine learning APIs. You could also use some visualization tools, so partners like Tableau, Looker, or even connectors like Google Sheets or other spreadsheets. BigQuery makes it easy to share, and you choose who has access to the data when. So we like to think about doing marketing analytics on Google Cloud through the lens of the data lifecycle. So we have collect, transform, and analyze, and we know that most companies need to do this before they can get value out of their data, and we have tools that help support you every single step of the way. So in order to unlock the power of your data and create the meaningful connections that start to tell a bigger story, it's important to set your base up right and make sure you have a strong data foundation. So this is really just the beginning of the journey. Google Cloud offers a data platform that's architecturally different from most other SaaS platforms in that it allows you to integrate huge data sets, many different data sources in a scalable, open-ended way. We have open architecture, which makes it easy to bring in many different data sources. You can merge those data sets. You can use machine learning. The result is a platform that is flexible and powerful that allows you to really respond to what your customers need. And we like to think of this as the era of assistance, meaning that customers want to have personalized, unique experiences. And when you use your data to tell that story, it makes it easier for your company to do that. So I hope you've enjoyed that overview. Next up, I'm going to invite Jonathan Ramiro to tell a little bit about 7stars and their success story with Google BigQuery. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Andrea. Really great stuff. So I'm Jonathan. I work at the 7stars, based in London, and we are the UK's most successful and largest independent media agency. So we're a full-service agency doing everything from TV and radio to the whole digital spectrum, and we've been around for several years now and growing very quickly. And as we've grown, we've also seen a big increase in the amount of data that is available to us and the demand from clients for sophisticated data projects. So we've really had to look at our options for managing that data and ensuring that we can effectively activate it and make it an asset for our clients and internal teams. So today I'm going to start just with a little bit about the journey that led us to Matillion and how we use it. So when I started at the 7stars, one of the core requirements was to overhaul the reporting solution. The traditionally was based on Excel with a lot of manual data extraction from various platforms, adding it into Excel and using pivot tables and things like that to produce the final dashboard. This was obviously a very manual process, taking a lot of time, and the outputs are not particularly good. So we wanted to automate as much as possible, save a lot of time and improve the visuals in one go. So we looked at various options to do that. There are a lot of solutions in the marketplace that offer kind of one-stop shop digital marketing, data and reporting solutions. And so we looked around at these services, but nothing really gave us the flexibility that we wanted. Each of our clients has very different requirements, and what works for one client doesn't necessarily work for another. And it was during this research phase that we kept hearing about BigQuery and GCP. And we were very interested in the double-click data transfer services that Google were offering. And we were also hearing more and more about clients wanting to upgrade to GA360 with the BigQuery export. So BigQuery was becoming a very viable solution for us. It was then quite easy to make that decision to move to BigQuery and put all our data into BigQuery. It offered everything we were looking for. It's scalable. Maintenance free basically, and we could pull in the data from all our Google Stack advertising platforms. That left us with a hole for various other platforms like Facebook and Twitter. Matillion is one solution that will actually bring data in from those platforms, when there are several other third-party providers that will hook up to various other advertising platforms and pull the data straight into BigQuery. So it's really easy and stress-free to get your data into BigQuery, and that was a big bonus for us, and one of the key things that led us to BigQuery. So now you've got all your data in BigQuery, what do you do with it? How do you activate it? How do you make sense of it all? There's a lot of different data sets, different schemas, not particularly user-friendly if you're not a technical team. So certainly for us, using the DCM data transfer files with billions and billions of rows, it's not something you can directly work with like a Tableau or a Data Studio. And BigQuery itself is great for writing queries and getting that immediate result. But for reporting, what we needed to have in place was a replicable process, these transformation jobs that we needed to build to aggregate and clean the data for use in reporting and other things. And we didn't have a big team of SQL experts. We didn't have a team of data engineers available to do that for us. So we really needed a tool to kind of bridge that gap for us. And this is where Matillion comes in. And we stumbled upon Matillion at a GCP summit in London. And within 5 minutes of a demo of Matillion, we had decided that this was a really great tool for us, something that could help us in the problem that we had. So we signed up, we got it going, and within a week or so, we were very comfortable with it. We could do everything we needed to do. So joining different data sets together, aggregating, putting various string calculations and other kind of calculations to really normalize the data that we were working with. So we really could do everything we needed to do and take that billion row of data table down to maybe 30, 40,000, which is much more manageable. And lastly, really the great thing then is also being able to schedule these transformation jobs. So if you have consistent data coming into BigQuery, like within the data transfer files which are coming in every so often, you can then schedule your Matillion jobs to coincide with that, and you have a consistently updated data set for you. So it's really great to structure that data, get it ready for reporting. The key really is getting that lean and consistent data set where you get much better performance from things like Tableau and Google Data Studio, where you've got your data set up and ready to go. So we've been managed to build at least 10 or so custom reports since starting up with Matillion, saving hundreds of hours really in work hours, and letting those people who would normally be working with Excel to actually go and do other things and be much more effective. And I think finally, it's also important to note that while the reporting requirement was the main driver for us initially, it's actually not necessarily where you're going to get all your value from. And since we've been using Matillion for management of the big raw data sets we get from Google, you can then start to look at things like advanced audience segmentation, things you can't do in DCM or GA interfaces, so you can get a much more specific and detailed segmentation of your customers. And specifically, if you're using DBM for remarketing, then the PLU process, which takes those audiences and from BigQuery and puts them into DBM, that PLU process can be automated through Matillion, which is a huge time saver, because that's currently a manual process if you're not using something like Matillion. And then working with the GA360 data export, which is a very tricky data set to work with at times. So bringing Matillion and putting that on top is really, really beneficial. We recently had a client brief to build an attribution model on their 360 data, and we were able to use Matillion to actually transform that data and put the model in. So very versatile tool, and the benefits to us have been really tremendous. So I'd like to thank Google and Matillion, and now I think it's David from Matillion to come in and give us a demo.
Hi, hello to everyone. So as Jonathan just said, I'm David Langton from Matillion. I've drawn somewhat the short straw today. I'm going to be doing a live demo. I've practiced it twice and I'm currently running at a 50% success rate. So whether this goes smoothly or terribly, I hope you'll still get some value out of it. So let me switch over to the demo. Excellent. So what you'll do if you've already got a web browser, you can sign up for GCP, you can get BigQuery running, and you can head to Google Cloud Launcher and get your own copy of Matillion running. That's what you're looking at right now, and I've just started to build a job. And the scenario we're going to run through today is just to take some data out of a couple of different silos, bring it back together and make something out of that. You can already see on screen that I'm loading my Salesforce contacts. And the first thing I'm going to do is just duplicate that so that we can also load the Salesforce account data. Now I'm doing that in what we call an orchestration job. We'll have transformation jobs as well, and we'll come to that later. The important point is that we do, despite saying we're an ETL tool, we're actually doing the extract and the load all in one go in these orchestration jobs, and we'll transform the data in place on BigQuery afterwards, so the data won't have to leave BigQuery again just to get reshaped and cleansed. Okay, so the way this works, any component you see on the screen, highlight it, work your way through the properties, connect it up so that it runs at the right time during your flow, and you should be good to go. So I've just taken a copy of the Salesforce contacts job. I'm just going to switch that now to load the Salesforce account data. Now the account data has different columns, so that's not valid yet, and all I need really is the ID and the name from there. The other thing I'm going to do is quickly change the name of the output table, otherwise we'll be overwriting our contacts. And I'll just wire that up to the start component. Perfect. So I mentioned another source of data. This is Salesforce. We could also be loading from all sorts of internet systems, CRM systems, ERP systems, over and above any data you may already be transferring into BigQuery via Google's own services. So what I need here really, I've got a data file in cloud storage, and I want to bring that in and match it to my Salesforce contacts. Now I could do that by bringing on a create table with the right structure, and then followed by a load. What I'm actually going to do is use a tool that we've got, which will do all of that for me in a wizard, so that it just makes it a little bit simpler. So I'll drag that and drop it onto the canvas, and I will find my sample data file. There we go. And rather than having to do a lot of manual effort now, based on a sample of a number of rows, we'll just guess what the appropriate table definition for that is. It's pulled the header out and given me some sensible column names. It's detected that it's a CSV. I could carry on and make some modifications and maybe do a test, but for the purposes of this demo, I'm pretty sure that's going to work. I'm going to hit OK and just continue. Now at that point, it looks like that job is almost done. My cloud storage load seems a little bit unhappy. I'm getting some failures there. It's actually just because the target table doesn't exist, or doesn't exist yet. In fact, when I run this job in a moment, it will exist, and then that will work just fine. So let's run that now. Excellent. So that's going to bring in 2 tables from Salesforce and also some data from Google Cloud Store. There's a little bit more to do in this job, and I'm going to come back and finish it off in a few minutes' time. But right now, I'm going to switch over to the transformation job, where we're going to try and make sense of some of this data. I've already started it, and I'm not going to go through the details here, but essentially I'm just joining those Salesforce contacts and accounts back together. What we really want is to bring those 2 silos together though. So what I'm going to do is bring in that data we just loaded in from cloud storage and join that as well. So I'm just going to bring in a table input and configure it quickly. Get the right one. And we'll just bring in all the columns from that file. I'm then going to need to join that to my Salesforce data. And for this particular analysis, my main table is that marketing data. I am interested in each and every individual that was targeted in this campaign, and that's the file that's telling me who was targeted. What I'm interested in is how many of those targets ended up being Salesforce accounts with a contact that matches. As I say, that's a left join so that we're interested in all the marketing data, whether or not there was a contact. Now I need a join condition there. This is a SQL expression. I can use the UI to build that, because what I'm really interested in, the email address in that marketing file equals the email address of the linked contact in Salesforce. You'll also see that as I'm building that expression, it's being sent to BigQuery to be validated, so that if I've got any errors at this stage, I'll know before I run the job, not after. And the only thing I need now is to just bring the columns in, and being pressed for time, I'm just going to hit add all. Now I've done quite a lot of work at this point without really knowing whether any of this is working. Were those files really loaded from Salesforce? And we saw a preview of 50 rows of the marketing data, but what we really want to know is, have I configured everything correctly? Now what you'd normally do in an ETL tool is just run it, look at the output. When you spot a problem, go back to the beginning and run it again. We've got a little bit of a different flow here. Because all of the data is in BigQuery anyway, I can debug my transformations just by running some queries against the data that's already there, using the code that's already being generated by Matillion. So just as a sanity check, I'm going to set a filter on this join and make sure it can find a record that I know should be in there. So let's take the last name. I'm going to set that equal to our CTO's last name. He will almost definitely appear in this data because he's always a sample record. And then I can get a preview of the data and the row count without actually running any queries or creating any physical tables. So we've got 10,000 rows coming in there, and we found the one row we were looking for, which tells us the right amount of data is there and all the joins must be working for us to get this far. Okay, just a little bit more. That's still raw data. We might want to aggregate that. So I'm going to throw on a quick aggregation, but also a calculation. What we're really interested in here is whether that marketing data actually led to the creation of an account. So we're going to add a quick expression to say whether the campaign was a success. That's going to be a little bit more SQL. Now, if we manage to find the company in Salesforce, we can pick any field coming from Salesforce really for this. If that's null, then that's not a success. Otherwise it is. Now you'll know your data a lot better than I will. You'll also recognize that this is a very simplified and very idealized scenario, but hopefully it gives you an idea of what's going on here. I've now got a 0 or 1 flag on every single record based on whether that converted. There's no errors, so let's flow that into my aggregate. And this is where you can really start to get some powerful things. We group by the campaign name. What we're primarily interested in is how many people we emailed. So we can just count the records for that. And we can sum those 0, 1 flags to give us a meaningful number of how many of those were respondents. And at this point, I can also go back, see how many data is going to make it to that point in the flow, and have a look at it as well. This has been very highly aggregated down to just a handful of campaigns, and you can see that emailing a couple of thousand people for each variation, and we're getting response rates of just under 1,000. If any of you guys are getting that sort of response rate from an email campaign, do get in touch, because I'd love to hear about that. One last thing, I'm going to write that out to a physical table so that we can share that with other people without giving them access to all that raw data with potentially sensitive things in there. Give that a quick name. I don't want to overwrite any of the tables I've got, I'll just have a new one. I'm going to run this job in a second, but first I'm going to make it part of a repeatable flow so that this can be run repeatedly and know that you're going to get the same results each time. So I'm going to drag my transform into the orchestration job and then just put an and in to make sure that all my prerequisite steps happen first before that transformation happens. So when my contacts are loaded and my accounts are loaded and my cloud storage load completes, then I can run my transform. And I'm just going to right click and run this demo job now interactively. That could of course be scheduled. It could be triggered on the basis of that file landing in the bucket and triggered that way. Also an API call could kick that off, and that will now run to completion. Just crossing an extra pair of fingers. So far, so good. Excellent. And now all my results are in BigQuery as well as the source data, which could now be removed. And we have a repeatable flow for doing that end to end every time those underlying data sources change. I hope you found that useful and informative, and I'd definitely invite you all to hang around for the next minute when we're going to turn over to a Q&A session. And I hope we've got plenty of good questions coming in for that. Thank you.
Well, thanks for that great demo, David. That was awesome. And it actually did went pretty well. So we've got a few questions from the audience. The first question is, what kind of data can I store in Google Cloud? Can I include personal information like customer names and email addresses? So the answer is yes, you can store any type of data that you want. We actually have a few different data products. We have BigQuery, which is our data warehouse. We also have Spanner and Google Cloud Storage, which can also store unstructured data. You are able to include personal information, PII, customer names, email addresses. We are a secure platform, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do with your own data. The second question is, can Google Cloud integrate with my on-premise systems or other marketing systems in other clouds? The answer is yes, Google Cloud can integrate. So you absolutely can write your own code to integrate with your on-prem systems, any other systems that you have in the cloud. Like I mentioned, we have our Google Cloud service, which you can use to help upload data in between. And you can also use partners who can help to integrate data and help that data move on-prem to the cloud.
Yeah, indeed. And in the Matillion demo you just saw, I only very briefly expanded some of the folders full of connectors we do for all sorts of systems, some of those running in the cloud, some of them on-premise. We also have a technology which allows you to map any API into a tabular format and load that as if it was a set of related tables. So if you've invested heavily in relational technology, it lets you get the most out of that and the best out of your staff who already understand that by just mapping that. Yeah,
flexible solution, awesome. So you've got lots of connectors in, lots of connectors out. It's awesome. So the next question is, I'm in a specialized industry, can I use Google Cloud? Why, yes, you can. So we actually have tons of, well, not tons, but we have a few specialized vertical solutions. So for example, healthcare, IoT, Internet of Things, finance. We also have government-specific solutions. So you're very interested in learning more about our industry-specific solutions and platforms, then you can navigate to cloud.google.com and check out our solutions page. We've got little tabs with tons of information on their architecture, solutions, tons of information about the industry. And then the last question. So if I use the BigQuery data transfer service or Matillion, do I get any extra information that's not already in the public reporting API? Yes. So you actually, or actually the answer is no. You actually don't get any extra information that's not included in the APIs. What happens is we just pull the information directly from the source where it's coming from. So for example, the YouTube API presents the data, I think every day. The DFP API has a different cadence, and we are just pulling that data in and doing that transformation for you. The advantage of this data is that it's a no-op setup. So literally in 5 clicks, you can bring your data in from those sources, and you can have it ready for analysis without having to maintain that ETL.
And that's just kept up to date at all times, isn't it? So you've never got to worry about that again. It's always just there when you need it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. It's been great to have you, and we'll hope to see you next Tuesday.